Greeting, my friends, or greetings, my friend. Oh, well, that works. Yeah, good to be with you here today. My name is DJ. It's time for How to Thrive in IT. This is the recording session, and yeah, it's time to have some fun. And so that's what this is all about today. Got some new improvements. Hopefully, we're gonna find out. But hopefully, well, I will tell you, I made a new investment in a new microphone, so I'm hoping that we're not going to have any of the weirdness and challenges we've had in the past with this recording. My goodness, I can't stand it sometimes, but here we go. We're going to be talking a little bit about AI and working in IT today. And so it's going to be an interesting journey. But the way this works, if you haven't been with me before, is this is a live recording session. So it means that it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to have lots of times where I'll probably say something and kind of pause, give myself a second to thought, and then think and redo it, that sort of thing. The podcast, when it airs, will be obviously edited and will be much different. And so, yeah, this is an opportunity for us to collaborate and that sort of thing as well. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we go, and we'll go from there. And if you're watching this after the fact, not a challenge. Just let me know if you have any questions, and we'll try and get those addressed at some point. At the end of the episode, one of the fun things we do with this is we have a time to create a song with AI. It's ironic given the subject matter, but we are going to try that today. I've actually got a sample one that I've already put together, and I'm going to see if I like this or not, and we might just stylize it, that sort of thing. But we'll we'll go from there. But so what's going to happen is I'm going to play through the intro, and then we'll start recording, and then after that we will have like a little time of silence to let the editor know when the episode is actually done, and then we'll go into the song selection for the episode process after that. So hopefully we're all good. Let's see here, and just a quick note live. Share the podcast. There's a link up above there. You just go to pod.co/thrive-it. And that's a link to the general podcast page where you can actually subscribe and share it from that point, which is very helpful. So if you would consider that, you can just point your phone right at the screen right now and have a look at that right there. So let's get into this. All right, we're going to play through the intro, and then we'll get going.
How we thrive. This is how to thrive in IT.
Welcome, my friends, to another edition of How to Thrive in IT. DJ, good to be with you here once again, and we will be having an interesting conversation today, I'm sure. But yeah, it's going to be all about AI and IT.
In IT.
All right. So again, if you don't know who I am, my name is DJ, and I have been an IT consultant for many, many years, and trying to just get the world more equipped for the next generation of IT leaders. And so that is my goal. That is my, there's going to be a little ironicness about me saying the goal that I have, but ultimately, that is the goal that I have with this podcast, is to equip you and inspire you to want to be moving forward in your careers and moving forward with with intentionality instead of just hoping good things happen. We want to make things happen around here. So that is the intention with How to Thrive in IT and what I'm doing here with you. So today, this is going to be kind of an off the cuff conversation, mostly inspired by a podcast that I was just on that aired yesterday, in the day I'm recording this. And so I'll have a link to that in the description there. But my friend Jonathan had me on his podcast to talk about IT and AI and how those are. He called it the war between IT and AI, that sort of thing. And I think it is kind of coming down to that. There's a lot of fears out there. There's a lot of notions of AI is going to replace my job and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to have a conversation with you today and talk more about that. And so this is what IT leaders need to know. Let's try that again. What IT leaders need to know about AI. And when I say that, it's not what you're thinking. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It is not exactly what you're thinking as far as like the technology itself or anything like that. What we're going to focus on is how work actually works and how to do that. And so what I'm going to introduce to you today is, and I had teased this with an episode prior, and I asked people to go get a copy of this book. But The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt is a book that was written in, oh my goodness, I believe the late 70s, early 80s, that really has been definitive in terms of being able to get a scientific theory around how work is done. And it's a fictional story that takes place in a manufacturing firm in which the person in the story that becomes the hero of the story really is a guy named Alex. And he is been tasked with getting his plant back into order. He's kind of the manager of the plant, and so he's got a lot of constraints. So Alex Rogo is his name, and he is got the impossible task of making things work in his plant, or it's going to be shut down. And so he eventually enlists the help of a guide. And the guide is named Jonah. And interestingly enough, it's not hard to see that Ellie Goldratt actually put himself in the story as this Jonah character, who is a professor and a scientist, that sort of thing, and has a theory of constraints that's developed out of this process that is really important, I think, for manufacturing. But what I've found in looking at this is that there's a lot of things that are important in the world of IT that flow into this. And I'm not the only one that's had this notion. If you've read the book The Phoenix Project, that was also inspired by The Goal. And in fact, there's references to it literally in the book. I mean, they talk about the goal in The Phoenix Project as kind of reference material. And so it's not unusual. And I think the theory of constraints that was brought up in The Goal is relevant. And I think that in the Phoenix Project, there were some things that were brought up that were also very relevant in terms of what's unique to IT work are things like unplanned work. So the theory of constraints, just to break this down in a very scientific way of saying it, and let me actually pull up the text here. So it is identify the system's constraints, decide how to exploit the system's constraints, subordinate everything else to the above decisions, elevate the system's constraints, and then, when necessary, go back to step one. But with a warning, do not allow inertia to cause a system's constraint. Now that sounds confusing without a little bit of context. And so a big part of this, it's a big part of this is knowing that you are ultimately only as strong as your weakest point, I guess is a way to say that. But a big part of that is, geez, my brain just left me for a second there. But so the theory is that you have, well, instead of Sarah's theory, let's talk about the story a little bit. So the challenge that Alex has is that he has these robots on the floor that are producing more widgets than they can actually finish. And so it's viewed as a positive thing by the company that they're saying, look at these robots. They're doing such a great job. They're so much more efficient than humans are. But the problem is, it's not actually causing any more production to happen in terms of making more money. And so the goal is not to produce widgets. The goal is to make money. And so what Alex discovers is that there are lots of ways the factory is not actually getting work done, but they are, in fact, waiting on other things to be done in a lot of cases and things like that. And so that's what's called a bottleneck, or in this case, a constraint. And so when you have these bottlenecks, then you have a constraint. Well, what does that look like in IT work? And this gets really interesting because in the Phoenix project, we find that there are additional things in IT where, let's say you are tasked with running a project, or you have an IT project that needs to be deployed. Let's also say that things happen in current production. And let's also say that you get phone calls about those things. Well, what happens to your production work at that point? It falls behind. So anything you would have gotten done that day doesn't get done because you have other things you have to deal with in the meantime. Very, very common, very, very actually incredibly common that you have. I'm trying to say here. Yeah, unplanned work. That's the best way to describe that kind of thing that's happening. Is it is work that you don't really have a plan to do. It just comes up, and so that becomes now yeah, basically a constraint. And so you can only do as much production as you have a lack of unplanned work, so to say. And so it would be the equivalent of in a manufacturing floor of having to stop work because a machine is down. And how does that impact the rest of the production line? Well, in the Toyota system and the goal here, that the theory of constraints, what we find is that the best way to handle things like that is actually to stop and not do it, work ahead of or behind, but allow the constraint to actually um, be fixed first before anything else goes on, that sort of thing. Otherwise, you get too much of a backlog in one side that can't be dealt with, or a lack of finished product on the other side. And so there's a lot of things about that come into play here. And so yeah, we want to talk about that. But I wanted to take a quick moment and tell you about today's sponsor for our episode, which is me. I'm the sponsor today. This will be the last week that I am hopefully the sponsor. I'm actually seeking some others, but the so basically what we have today is a course that I've created for people that will allow you to kind of step up in your understanding of how things work. And this is actually a critical step. I bring it up today because a lot of things that I bring up in this course are really critical. And so this is the complete confidence in assessment, presentation, and documentation in IT work. And so it's a more comprehensive course in that regards. Sorry, in terms of what the needs are in IT to be able to get to the goal of whatever that project is, having a good starting point with that is super crucial. And so if you don't have a good understanding of what the business goals are, for example, in a project, then it's just something that you're doing just to do it. And the odds of success are very, 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 very low. And so if you understand those business constraints and those business goals ahead of time, you can better be prepared. One of the things that we talk about in this course is actually having a spreadsheet to track risks to a project. It's actually a constraint we're going to probably be talking about in this episode a little bit today. So just a spoiler alert, that'll be part of that. But there is um, I could actually, if somebody wants to follow up me, I do make the spreadsheet available as part of a bonus structure for my book anyway. So the spreadsheet part of it is available, but there's the way that I track risks and recommendations which help. When we're talking about theory of constraints and those sort of things, where we're actually very helped by having a written down process of tracking how we're dealing with all these things. And so that's part of this process. So you can go to thrive-it.com/ITAPD. That's thrive-it.com/ITAPD to get access to that course. That's our sponsor for the week. Is me. So as we go along here, there's a lot that needs to be addressed as far as AI. And what I've noticed is that when it comes to the way work is done, AI basically becomes another one of those robots. In other words, if you don't have a good process in place, if you're not giving it good inputs to begin with, let's say it's generative AI, just to give an example. If you are giving generative AI bad input, then you're going to get a bad result out, right? You're not going to get intelligence out if you don't give it good input to begin with. That's basic machine learning 101, right? So what I'm seeing a lot of organizations do is assume that they can just replace staff with AI in that regards. Well, this is the problem, is that somebody still needs to be giving the right kind of input and that sort of thing. And so while it might make things more effective on appearance, what's actually happening in these kind of cases is that you have just another robot in the system, and you're only as good as your weakest point. And the reality is AI is rarely replacing the weakest point. I'll say that again. AI is rarely replacing the weakest point in your business, in your IT teams. Very, very rarely. Now, there are cases where it does make sense, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But honestly, I think that the main thing to understand is that when it comes to work and the nature of that, AI, for example, can't really deal with unplanned work very well. We're not there yet. We're not there to a point where it's going to be able to well, let's take systems engineering, for example. If you are trying to deploy a new software system, for example, and you need to be able to adapt that to the needs of your organization, that's not a thing that tends to be something AI does well at, is understanding the nuances of the business, the nuances of the use cases, the users, what they need. It doesn't do well with that. And so you need to have people freed up to be able to do that. Now, where AI often can do great things is in freeing up those people to do more of that. And so again, it's a resource like anything else. In fact, what I encourage people to do, and especially if you are somebody who is in a position of leading a team. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily managing a team. I'm talking if you are responsible for getting technical tasks done and you have a team working with you and you are the lead of that team. That's what I'm talking about. There are certain skill sets about this that you need to learn, and that's why every IT leader, I always recommend reading The Goal at a minimum. You want to be reading this book because it really helps you understand the nature of production work. And it's very important for any kind of IT lead to know how that works and to be able to not only identify the constraints, but also how to communicate that back to management. And so let's say you have identified a constraint that is not allowing you to move forward, where you have too long taking on support calls, for example. Well, are there things that you can do from an AI perspective to either monitor for things in advance and be proactive, which there are some companies out there that I could mention that are doing some awesome things with that right now. Again, you're only strong as the input you're getting and how you tell that to process that. But there are some companies out there that are doing some great things with that. There are also some companies out there that are producing AI products that are able to kind of stand in between you and the user or whoever's making the complaint, and kind of constraining that to make sure that you are the right person that's being routed to. In other words, it's saving you the work of having to. Uh, I almost said deal with the person. That's not the right way to say that. Not exactly. It's a common way to say it, but honestly, what you're trying to do here is discern if this is something you should be stopping work that you're currently doing to take care of or not. And so that triaging method, there's a lot of processes that I know get people very frustrated. But in terms of protecting what's important, sometimes you need those processes in place. And so there are ways to do that. And so a lot of the modern help desk systems, I guess you could say, are getting much better about using intelligence that way, or artificial intelligence that way. Now, we're very much a long way away from the notion of um, how do I say that? We're a long way from general AI. In other words, general actual intelligence with that. We're still very much in a either reactive or proactive state about that. We're not really truly at a point where, somebody can say, an AI can say, "Oh, yeah, you know what? I think that might be this." We're not truly there yet. That intuition is not there, and I'm not sure it ever will be, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Those sort of things, and then kind of doing the checklist. Have you tried turning it off and then on again? if I if I ever had one thing that I'd want AI to be doing is literally, I think of the IT Crowd, and there was an episode where he had a recording of him saying, "Have you turned it on and off again?" and then just hanging up. That's kind of what I would definitely think of AI doing that, being making us more productive in that kind of way. And so if you have done something like that, I want to know. I absolutely want to know. You need to contact me and tell me your story, because I want to hear that. That's the story I want to hear, of somebody that actually does that with an AI and makes that uh, a process that they can do. So yeah, I think it'd be brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But those are ways to do one most important thing, and I'll say this before we go on to the next, is that if you are in an IT leadership position, or you have people that are under you in any kind of way, whether that's just that you're just a peer and you're just leading your peers, which is not really they're under you at all. They're more like shoulder to shoulder with you, which is, in my mind, the best kind of leadership, hands down. The best type of leadership is when you have a grouping of people that are working together side by side, and that you are just the one that is interfacing. And so team lead often just means interface, but that also means that you are tasked with keeping your team productive by standing in the gap. So you might be doing less work and more communicating, but that also can mean that you are aware of times where your team is not as effective as they could be, and using things like AI to kind of stand in the gap and make sure that they're being more productive. Well, that's intelligent. And so I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist that pun. But let's go into the next section right after we hear about our resource of the week.
Variety brings the heat, something new every week. Get ready to click and see something awesome for you and me. Resource of the week. Oh yeah, resource of the week.
All right. So this week's resource of the week, I mentioned the podcast that I was on. Well, I should also mention his book, ChatGPT Profits. Jonathan Green is the author and AI expert that has put together a way for you to be more productive. And again, like I was saying, if the goal is to make money, then being more effective at doing that is a way to do that. And so, ChatGPT Profits is his book that is available to you for free. That's right. For a limited time, I've arranged with Jonathan through a special link that I have to be able to get that book in your hands electronically for free. And so if you go to thrive-it.com/JGROTW, that's JGROTW, you'll be able to get that book completely for free and read it and learn more about how you can use AI in ways you might not have thought of before to increase your productivity and therefore your profits, your general being able to just do more with less. And so it is an impressive resource for you to be able to do that and just basically just understand how things like ChatGPT have been very transformative in ways you might not think of to be able to increase the amount of time that you are able to be thoughtful and effective on your own and be able to organize your thoughts more effectively. In fact, what we're going to go through in our next section is actually more about that. And I actually asked AI to actually create a list of some ways it's being adopted in IT administration. We're going to go through that list, but that was totally by just asking ChatGPT for a simple question and getting a result. But there's a lot more you can do with it, and Jonathan goes into that in much more detail than I'm willing to in this particular episode. But ChatGPT is a great resource for you to be able to just do things to learn how this kind of stuff can be done, and then be able to adapt that in your own organizations to be more effective in your work. But there's a lot of ways that you can use this, including getting a new job or getting a better job or increasing your visibility. All these kind of things are things that you can get a lot of additional input in and have somebody in your corner with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT Profits, your resource of the week from Jonathan Green, author and producer of the podcast that I was on recently. Link in the descriptions for all that. All right. So in terms of the goal, in terms of making sure that we are effective, there's a lot of things that can be done right now. And I think when it comes to IT administration especially, is where I'm seeing a lot of AI being useful. Now, there are some uses in engineering, and let's be honest with each other. I think most people that are using AI in engineering work are already pretty good at it, and they're getting better and better all the time. This is largely true for a lot of scripting and things like that. But there's a lot of ways that I'm talking about that I think are able for administration to be made more effective. And so I wanted to take a moment and just talk about some of those ways we can kind of make sure the machine is running more effectively by eliminating those unplanned works and kind of making sure that we're more proactive about the way we're doing things. And so some things that I hadn't even really thought of when this list came up. One of the things that I already knew about was when you're doing IT operations that are automated. I think way back in the day, maybe not way back in the day, but at 10 years ago, easily, there was a company that I really loved called Rez, and they had a software package that was basically able to automate a lot of HR functions that were IT related. In other words, you didn't want your HR person to be charged with making new user accounts in your Active Directory and setting up passwords and all these kind of access to whatever systems. But having a system where they could intelligently just look and click and kind of like a storefront kind of thing that it had, where they could just click all the things that they would need responsibility for, what applications they would need access to, that sort of thing. Now all of a sudden, your HR person, basically, when they're setting up a new hire, can do that. They can have management approval mechanisms for that, where they can have say, okay, we need to request that this person has access to this. And there was a system to do that, kind of like a storefront kind of a thing. I thought it was brilliant back in the time. Well, nowadays we can even have some AI workflows that are maybe even less hands-on than that, where we can have a lot of um, things that are set up, but also a lot of checkpoints in that process to be able to say, okay, are we are we in the right place for this? Does this person have what they need? Also, from a security perspective, that kind of the zero trust kind of a thing, we can use AI in a lot of intelligent ways to prevent those kind of areas where somebody has more access than they need, but also to be appropriate in how we grant access. Um, I haven't seen the systems yet as um, broad as it were, but what I am seeing is a lot of organizations that are using, we'll call it AI. It's not always AI, but it's close enough. It's automated, where there is a communication mechanism in like Slack or Teams or programs like that that are able to communicate and keep track of a workflow. We get distracted easily, and this is what I was talking about with unplanned work. Is it tends to derail a lot of things we're doing. In fact, I'm not done with this yet. It's a little embarrassing that it's been something I've put on the shelf and haven't actually finished yet. But as I've been going through reading this and prepping and all these kind of things, I've realized that one of the gaps that I have and a lot of people in IT work have is making sure to follow up with things. And I don't currently have a good methodology for that, and so I'm working on that. And so there's a actual physical written planner that I'm getting ready to put out into the world that will have a section literally for follow-ups, because it's that big of a deal of me being distracted by outages and all these kind of things that happen that make it so that follow-ups are a problem. Well, the thing with AI is you can make it so it's not distracted. I heard a demo. Gosh, this is over a year ago now, of a basically a service desk that call in, and the voice was really well done and all that kind of stuff, and but the intelligence was there to be able to, if you said, oh, I also needed to work with this, and it would actually be smart enough to work with you on it now, but then still ask you about the reason you originally called in, where that is something where that's a very common problem with service desks, but also very much a common problem in IT administration, where you have things that need to be done and the follow-up just won't happen because something else will distract the person. Well, there's a lot of workflows that can be done even in the chat programs or email or things like that, without having to get outside of your context and go into a special system to do this. You'll be able to do that right in your context. Well, AI is a lot of things that make that possible nowadays, and so that's actually a very positive thing we can do. Another thing that um, I think is well, you have chatbots and things like that that are great for helping with that. Now we kind of talked about that already, but I think there's a lot of things that I don't think IT leaders are always taking advantage of when it comes to a lot of either generative or evaluative, evaluative. Is that a word? I don't know. AI, where it's basically saying, let's look at the resources that you have and how are those being utilized. And I'm not just talking like machine resources. I'm talking human resources, and saying, okay, here's an analysis of everybody's work this week? What, where, how can we identify those bottlenecks that we're talking about? How can we identify constraints that are needing to be dealt with or worked around? Like if we have one person on the team that's doing something that's so critical that nothing else is going to be able to get done until that part of it is done. How can we better isolate that so that person is effective? How can we better distribute their workload? So there's a story in the Phoenix Project where there's a character named Brent, and Brent is basically the guy that knows everybody. And gosh, I think there's got to be easily half of the people that listen to this podcast, I guarantee, are in this boat where they are the person that has been responsible to know everything. They're if they were ever to be, God forbid, hit by a bus or whatever, and the company would be suffering greatly because they wouldn't know how to operate. That's the character of Brent in this book. And so sometimes you have to force the other people to learn what that other person is doing. And so you actually literally have to force them not to be taking responsibility for things and force that to be distributed out, knowing full well that it'll make it less effective in the short term, but more effective in the long term. Well, that's something where I think AI being having not as much emotion about it can be blunt. And sometimes if you are leading an IT team, what you need more than anything is blunt. And so now granted, when it comes to all of this notion of analysis of resources, you do have to have some good input, like I was saying earlier. And so there is some challenges there. We have to be able to be tracking honestly how we're spending our days and what things we're doing. And so it's always frustrating for people, especially in IT. And I'm one of these. You know, I struggle with this all the time. In fact, literally, I charge by the hour. So you'd think I'd be like really on it about, making sure that I'm tracking my time. No, no, I'm horrible at it. I'm horrible. I guarantee you, I leave thousands and thousands of dollars on the table every single year. I guarantee it. Maybe even every month. There's times where it's that bad. And so having good processes, and this is something I'm actually working on about, having a system where AI can actually analyze my time of given tasks and things like that and more easily and be able to point out inefficiencies to me. And so that's something I believe is getting better and better all the time. Um, and then there's also systems things, right? There's also proactive and predictive systems that are in place. I don't need to talk about those too much. I think that's more of just a um, who knows? Maybe there's somebody that wants to come talk about that as a sponsor. Hint, hint. But there's a lot of those kind of systems out there too. But I think when it comes to thinking about AI as basically another employee, let's just go ahead and say it like that. If we treat AI like it is another employee, then we're able to better utilize that resource as if it were. So instead of being just a toy or just the latest thing we're dealing with, or something that you write your code with and never get it credit for, you know who you are. This guy, I'm that guy. I don't code well, and so AI has been great. Write me a script that does this. Boom. Yeah, but anyway, there's some items with that as well. But honestly, I think what it really comes down to is being able to meet the goal more effectively. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is that just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing. In a lot of IT organizations, this is especially true for those that are doing more consultative work. Having AI is not going to fix your problems. There's a lot of years and years. I'm talking almost 20 years that people have asked me to develop like a system to where they can just input a couple things and output a award-winning design for a Citrix environment. This is something that's been requested a lot. And every time we'd attempt something like that, what would end up happening is something would get missed because you're only ever as good as your inputs, right? Well, the thing that humans can do better than AI right now is intuit when something is missing. And so, in a lot of cases, you still need those human resources to be able to do that. You still need to be able to rely on those kind of things. And so, when it comes to AI being part of your organization, let's say, what becomes important is to recognize, is that really the best fit? And when it comes to management being convinced of this, because there is a lot of a push towards, yeah, let's just say it. There is a big push towards AI replacing jobs that have no business being replaced by AI. There's a big push for this right now. And it is ironic to me that the goal was written over 40 years ago. And the big challenge with the goal, or that was written about at the time, was the notion that you have robots magically making everything better because you're making more widgets now. And making more widgets is better. Forgetting that if you're not more effective, you're not more effective. You're not making more money, you're not making more money. And so just making more widgets isn't going to magically make you money. So I see that same kind of thing happening right now. So what it becomes incredibly important for you to do, and this is why I encourage people to get the book, read the book, or in my case, I recommend the audio. It's great. It's a great. The one that's available on Audible right now is a great rendition of that. So that's something I recommend, mostly because it is important for you to be able to explain to management in their language why some things should be AI and some things shouldn't. If you are in, especially an IT manager type position, it's really important for you to be able to articulate where things are effective in moving the company forward and not. You may not expect that that's part of your notion, or your expect that that's part of your expectations. But if you can do that, you're going to be much better about defending your team from things like, well, I'm coming from a place of recently discovering some folks that had done that and lived to regret it because they found that, yeah, AI was not a effective replacement. All it had done is basically taken off little tiny chunks of what was being done in a work week and replacing an entire person with that. And so the effectiveness just wasn't even close. And so as a tool for everyone to use, it would have made more sense. But they thought that they could just put this tool in, make people more effective, quote unquote, and that would allow them to be able to let people go from that team. And it didn't work out like that at all, because that's just not the way work works. It just doesn't. And so, yeah, I could go on and on and on, and maybe we'll have a follow-up episode to this. There's some other things that I want to start talking about as far as like, documentation and process development and things like that, that I think are improving. AI, what I'm seeing people do right now is not okay, as far as like, write me a document about this, and then they just kind of assume that's going to be correct. What I'm seeing being developed by a lot of folks these days is to say, take everything I've done and document that sort of thing. Screenshots, those kind of things are coming. I think there's going to be a lot of processes that we have in IT operations and IT engineering that are probably going to be made more effective by this. But right now, it doesn't replace the human in that regard. See, somebody still has to be responsible to make sure that that's correct, which is actually something that is a challenge right now. Is people just assuming because they don't have the time, because they've been either had staff replaced by AI or whatever. There's expectation that the robots are going to somehow make things better, that they no longer have the time for quality control and things like that. Well, guess what? AI doesn't have to update its resume. You do. So it's important to take these things seriously. It really is. So, in any case, guess I don't want to necessarily end there, but it's important that you know that just because something can be automated doesn't always mean that that is the best. And so you always want to be thinking proactively about what's the best way to use this and what is not. And if it means making yourself more effective, by all means, make yourself more effective. Just don't expect that that's going to actually be valuable just because you are. It's always about what kind of things are actually the most important. How do you elevate that constraint? How do you protect that? And if it's on you, if you have just kind of getting this down to the macro level, if you have or micro level, I should say, if you have things that are part of your work, part of your workflow, making sure that you have identified the thing that is most important for you to be doing, that is always a better thing than saying, well, I'm just going to use AI to make myself, write this document faster. Great. Well, is that actually saving you from, all the all the things that are causing you not to do the things that are actually important for other people to have done? Are people waiting on you to do things that you are actually having all these other things to do and you're not doing those things first? A lot of times we have processes that we need to follow better. One of these times I do need to talk about the top three and all this kind of stuff. I'm going way too long today for you. I don't want to bore you with all that today. I'll bore you with it another day. But there are some things we need to be just better about, and just simply putting AI on top of our bad work practices isn't going to make our work better. And so that's probably what I'll leave with you today, is to think about work first. Go get the goal, read it, understand it, thrive in it. Speaking of going and thriving with that, that's the goal there for you. But I actually had another thing I was going to give you here today. All this season of the podcast, our first season, I've been giving people an opportunity to get my book, Just Do This, A Simpler Way to Succeed in IT. This time around, what I'm going to do is get you the entire first part of the book on PDF. So if you would like an introduction to see if this is something that's useful to you, I'm making this available to my listeners for free. All you have to do is go, oh my goodness. I do apologize. I had a quick link for this, I swear. There'll be a link in the description. We'll do it that way. So just go see the link in the description and you'll get a copy of part 1 of Just Do This. It's yours for the cost of none. Awesome stuff. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to do it for today. And yeah, I swear I had something else I was going to talk about, but I just can't think of what it is. So we'll just end there. I should have had AI do this episode for me, right? Maybe it would have been more succinct and concise. I kid. Anyway, it's great to be with you here today. We'll see you next time for another episode of How to Thrive in IT. Thanks for being with me today. Lots of fun today. I actually had some notes that I lost in the midst of all that. It went away on my screen, and so yeah, that was improvised. Lots of fun. But anyway, I think what I'm going to do is throw together. I had something. Yeah, there's. It's funny when we talk about AI and errors and that sort of thing. My attempts so far to find a way to describe a good song of the pitfalls of using AI and IT, it's like it's breaking its brain to to think about. Um, I wonder if I can bring up the first attempt that I made here. Um, yeah, let me do that here. So anyway, be thinking. I'm thinking this one. I'm gonna just say that I'm gonna do this as kind of like a techno kind of a song, and I'm not gonna ask for that. But if there are themes that stand out to you, keywords, go ahead and just put those in the chat, and we'll just try and get those done. So I'm gonna switch over here and put this on the screen for us. And so the first attempt was interesting. Um, yeah, and I don't know why, but every now and then I think what I need to do is just try a different generative engine for this to generate the actual lyrics. But yeah, it has a lot to do with ghosts and things like that, which is interesting, but um, not really talking about. I wanted something that was actually about IT work and just not getting it. So it's so I'm having a challenge with that this morning, and this might be something that we may end up punting on this. I was going to actually try one more time to to get this going, and so I'm actually going to try Copilot today, um, just to see if I get any difference out of that. So I'll have it write a song about the pitfalls of using AI in IT operations. Let's try that. 'Cause, yeah, I'm just not happy with this particular result. So let's try and I'm clicking on the screen here. Yeah. Okay, this might I might have to use this. This is just too fun. Let me paste this in here for you. Uh, let's see. In the server room, lights are glowing, machines are humming, data's flowing. But deep inside this digital maze is a warning we must face. I like that. Oh, I need to correct the formatting here too. Oh my goodness, this is way too much. I knew there was a challenge here. We're gonna take out O. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. And IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. I think that's a pretty good chorus there. What do you guys think? don't don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. I'll actually do it. You know me. I will absolutely do things like that. Um, all right, how are we feeling about verse 2 here? Algorithms don't feel like this don't feel the stress of a network in distress. Oh, actually, I think I can work with this. I'm going to say unplanned work causes distress. And here we go with the AI yet again. When the code's not right, it's always code with the AI. It just can't think of anything. Let's see. When the code's not quite right, humans must stay up all night. There you go. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to keep that. Let's see. A bridge. Yeah, I'm going to make that a verse, actually. Verse. Automation, smooth and slick. But a bug can make things tick. Wait, what? Speaking of bugs, that doesn't really quite work. Automation, maybe smooth and slick. No, I don't like that. But it takes constraints to make things tick. Errors spread like wildfires fast. No, I don't think I like that. AI may take you there too fast, and humans must fix in the past. There you go. Chorus. Let's see. Outro. I think it kind of works as an outro, maybe. But we got to have our typical bridge. And let me pull that up here. What do I say here? Yeah. Yeah. You got to Thrive IT. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do it that way. We'll make it nice and cheesy. Okay, so outro. Let's see. Blend our minds and machines. I don't know if I like that, but we'll say. Oh wait, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I forgot something here. I threatened it. I just want to know what it's going to do. All right, so intro or outro here. We're going to say constrain our work with machines, cautious of unforeseen scenes. I like that. Together with that, make tech and keep all our systems in check. There you go. All right, style of music. We're gonna go with I don't know if techno is good enough. We'll just say techno electronica. There's another way to describe it that oh, you're saying boots and cats. I was using boots and pants. Boots and cats. Does that work? I think it does. Yeah, do it that way. God, why am I blanking on another way to describe like EDM? I need a title. A working title, or we'll do it that way first. All right, let's see what this comes up with. Meanwhile, we'll listen to the other one. Yeah, there's this thing going on with Suno right now. The generation has this like shimmering effect, and I'm hoping it's going to resolve soon so I can actually remaster these. But ooh, that's actually kind of cool. But let's see what I came up with for ours here.
In the server room, lights are glowing, machines are humming, data's flowing. But deep inside this digital maze, there's a warning we must face. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Algorithms don't feel the stress, unplanned work causing distress. When the code's not quite right, it's humans who must stay up all night.
Nice.
AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Automation may be smooth and slick, but it takes constraints to make things tick. AI may take you there too fast, and humans must fix what's in the past. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. AI, you've got your place, but don't
I almost spit out that water there.
human race. In IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Don't just survive IT, you've got to thrive IT. Tune in, subscribe, the only way to thrive. Thrive-it.com. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Constrain our work with machines, be cautious of unforeseen scenes. Together we'll navigate the tech and keep our systems all in check.
Not a bad way to spend a Tuesday, huh? All right. So that was version 1. Yeah, I'll have to get some better title there. Let's see. Now, number 2 here. Yeah. Can't wait for this one.
In the server room, lights are glowing, machines are humming, data's flowing. But deep inside this digital maze, there's a warning we must face. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In eye-to-ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Algorithms don't feel the stress, unplanned work causing distress. When the code's not quite right, it's humans who must stay up all night. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In eye-to-ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Automation may be smooth and slick, but it takes constraints to make things tick. AI may take you there too fast, and humans must fix what's in the past. Boots and cats, boots and pants, boots and cats, boots and pants. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In eye-to-ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Don't just survive IT, you've got to thrive IT. Tune in, subscribe, the only way to thrive. Fluff-it.com. You've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Constrain our work with machines, be cautious of unforeseen scenes. Together we'll navigate the tech and keep our systems all in check.
That's classic right there. Classic. My vote is for the first one, though. I think I like the first one better. So we'll let y'all decide if you want to override me on that. You can feel free, but I kind of like that first one. Oh, we'll have to come up with a clever title, of course, but yeah, good stuff. Like I said, great way to spend a Tuesday. Thanks for being with me here today. I think what I'm going to do here is, if I can go back. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do at all. Let's go back to number 1, and I'll play that as our outro today. But thanks for being with me here today. We will not be recording for the next 2 weeks. Naturally, out for the holidays. So we will see you again on, what is that, the 7th. That's the plan anyway, to be back recording another session on the 7th. I've got plenty of episodes backlogged at this point. So we'll be doing that. One thing I did not mention, if you have a company that wants to be a sponsor for us, feel free to do that. But bottom line, best thing you can do to help me out right now is to share what we're doing here. And I hope that you guys have a thriving Christmas and a epic New Year. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
In the server room, lights are glowing, machines are humming, data's flowing. But deep inside this digital maze, there's a warning we must face. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Algorithms don't feel the stress, unplanned work causing distress. When the code's not quite right, it's humans who must stay up all night. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. IT ops, you may seem fine, but don't ignore the warning signs. Automation may be smooth and slick, but it takes constraints to make things tick. AI may take you there too fast, and humans must fix what's in the past. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. AI, you've got your place, but don't forget the human race. In IT ops, you may seem fine,